a grant for 40,000 that's gonna look into that. But if you were to look down the road, and see some improvement to the library facility, would you have to close the library at that time?
You probably have to own an annex someplace else in the city to accommodate the needs of the citizens and transport the books out of the library. If, Council, you're going in the direction of building a new library, would we have to close it?
I don't think I'm going that way. I don't think it's your thought, is it?
Well,
Is it that bad?
It needs work.
Long overdue.
It's a tired building.
Yeah.
But that's really not for this meeting, because here we're talking about the operating budget, and that would be a capital budget issue. That's long-term. This
Well,
is immediate short-term.
It may be an operating budget, but not this year. Thank you.
Councilor Cruz?
Getting back to Council's question just now, you said you could move the library if it was under renovations per se. Am I correct?
Just like Leominster did.
Just like Leominster did. Okay, good example.
You'd have to find another facility, something that was, accommodating and reasonable for people to get to.
Okay. Have you considered doing something like that and taking your $40,000 study, getting that done, trying to do some kind of capital campaign fundraising to raise funds to put back into the library? And does the state allow us to do something like that and not lose our accreditation while we're going through this process?
I think they might be two separate issues.
Okay.
One is the operating budget, and is it getting properly supported by the city of Fitchburg? And the other is long-term, a capital campaign. What's the library going to look like? A community of our size, population-wise, what does the state recommend for size and so forth? That's a longer process.
But I'm talking about redoing what we currently have. I mean, I've heard roof leaks, I've heard mildew issues, I've heard heating and air conditioning, if there is any air conditioning here, out of control, no control over. So in my eyes, it just seems like that we could have probably saved the amount of monies we're looking for if we would have had a little better upkeep on the building itself.
Counselor, there has been ongoing upkeep of the building. Unfortunately, our resources are limited, so we couldn't take on the whole scope of the job.
Okay.
But we have done it by phase as needed.
Thank you. I have one other question for you. I don't think Councilor Connery's question was answered. I know Dick Saracen gave us what he thought a good definition, but is that something that's feasible? The question that Councilor Connery had asked?
A gift that goes to the city,
Correct.
That would be a determination by the Board of Trustees,
I see.
and perhaps Evangelos could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can revisit that. It's a creative thought, and I think it deserves some consideration. But we'll have to go back and check with our bylaws and so forth to make sure that something like that is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was, we certainly would consider it.
Okay. I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels about that, or for that matter, if we're willing to take the chance of cutting the amount of monies that we need to cut from this budget, and hoping that the library committee will be able to establish some sort of a gift back to the city that way. And then we can replace the money that was taken out through line items through their donation, per se, and allow them to stay accredited and open at the same time. Just something to think about.
Councilor,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Well, my only concern with that is that in this past year, we did give $21,600 of the Wallace Fund expendable portion to fund the repair on the elevator because the city did not have the money. We also did fund out of our state aid $10,000 deductible for smoke damage. Both of those expenses really usually go to the city, and we did pick them up.
Did you apply for a CBDG funding through that?
No, well, they have in the past, but not in this most recent year, no.
Okay.
We were turned down.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry that my fellow councilor DiMartino can't leave her home without being harassed or being afraid of leaving a home. So, Counselor, if you need my help, give me a call. I'll come over and walk you out of your home. But, not only I'm a product of the Fitchburg school system, I'm also a product of the Fitchburg Library. I believe it's very important to have the library. This is the same value that I try to instill into my 2 young daughters. I believe you've seen them quite often visiting the library. I also feel that the library is part of the fabric of the city. Now, rest assured that I will not take part in or be any part to decertify or close the library, because I feel that if we put a hole in the fabric, it will take us many, many years or even decades to fix that or mend that hole. At the same time, I also feel that we need to be fair and do the right thing for the city. This council, in the past 2 exhausting weeks, we've been doing the same thing across the board in all departments, making reductions to salaries. I've asked you the question that Councilor Hay brought up earlier at the last meeting, is that if we can reduce the salary and move that reduction to the expense line, you said yes. I think that is the right course of action to take for this year, so that way we can do something right for the city, being fair to other department heads, as well as keeping the library functioning. That's how I stand, and I would like you to consider that and talk to the mayor regarding that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think one of the interesting things all evening is supposed to be about Fitchburg's budget, but the most calls that I've received since I've been on a council, a zoning board, or anything in a city has been this one topic. One of the other interesting things is many people that have called have been out of Fitchburg. So I've kind of posed a question to them when someone's from a neighboring town coming to use Fitchburg. Are those communities certified? Is
Yes.
Westminster certified?
Yes,
Is Lunenburg certified?
yes,
Is Ashburnham,
yes,
Pepperell,
yes,
Leominster?
yes. We
Okay.
would not lend to a decertified community.
So, who has the highest budget in the area, Fitchburg or Leominster?
I'd probably, yeah, if I had to guess, probably Leominster right now, but
Let's go
I don't know their budget offhand.
What we have, if anyone knows about demographics, is the poorest community. Per capita, lowest income. And if you go back as many years as you want, if Fitchburg's had the biggest library since the 60s, our budget in everything, particularly the library, has always been larger. And if you go 2.5%, whatever the percentage is that we had to keep going up, when people are coming in, Fitchburg takes care of all the social ills. One of your problems at the library is some of the social ills that we have in the city. That's what I've heard. I don't know if anyone wants to admit it. But one of the problems that we have there, we take on the problems of all the other communities around. If one of the limits is in the library, police department, and even fire department, there was a smaller community for many years. So they're perhaps lagging behind us. We were a larger community. We had many more employees. But as stated by you and as observed by many in many departments, we still have a higher amount of employees in so many departments where a smaller community that is growing, we shrunk, they're coming up. We have more employees. I think in many, many departments, we have too many employees. And it was just asked, and I think it was Councilor Caddy asked something about reductions, but do you have a better idea? We are operating with municipal ideas, regulated by the state, with state bureaucracy. New ideas come from private industry. So many people in private industry are downsizing. There has to be people in here that work in private industry and understand what downsizing is. The municipalities we're victims. The bureaucracy says it has to keep getting bigger. What part of we can't afford it, don't they understand? I mean, to say that it can't be certified because the dollars that we have to contribute have to go up, and the dollars are not being proportionately increased. We can't continue. But to say one department, the library, is going to be the one that is the only one that doesn't get, it just isn't, it's not right. How one part of the state says we have to cut and balance, and the other part of the state says we have to increase. We have to do what's best for Fitchburg. It's a tough decision.
No, at this point, we are less than 1% of the city budget. And if I may, this library costs per capita, each member of Fitchburg, less than $26 per year. We spend $4.06 a year on new materials per capita. We have a very low operating budget. In this year and going into the next year, we've lost 8 employees, and this number has continued to drop year after year.
Councilor Connery.
Yes, I don't want to see the library close, and some people may not believe it, but I am a card-carrying member of the Friends of the Library, but I'm looking at the whole universe. I think that we really would qualify for a waiver based on something that you just said, Ann. You used gifted funds to help put in a new elevator, repair the elevator. You used gifted funds for smoke damage. And the reason you used those gifted funds is because the city didn't have the money to support those projects. So I think we've already demonstrated to the state that the city doesn't have the money, and that we would be at the top of the list for a waiver, I believe. This budget that you have submitted, I'm not finding fault with it, but it will be effective on July 1st. You indicated that you would be applying for the waiver in October. We'd be already 4 months into the FY08 budget. A decision would not be made until January. We're already 6 months into the FY08 budget. Maybe during the period from July 1 to December 31st, maybe there might be pennies from heaven. We don't know. But if there are, we probably could allocate money to the library if need be. That is only my personal opinion, and you know, I hope we would give that some consideration. Thank you.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think one thing we want to be very careful of during this deliberation and during the discussions regarding the library is to clearly identify what the library does and what the library means to the individuals in Fitchburg. It is an essential component of who we are in terms of amenities and services that we provide to the residents of Fitchburg. It's a more essential component to those who may not be fortunate enough to have the financial resources that many of us that are blessed with have to get information and to enjoy reading and to learn things and to grow. And we as a community have to keep that in mind. Who is hurt the most when we take actions? And if we're hurting people who have young children and have no other resources to help them learn and grow but the library, or if we're hurting seniors on fixed income who use the library for lending of videos or for magazine subscriptions that they can't afford to get for themselves, that's something that needs to be calculated in what we do here. Every time we make decisions, we need to try to identify as many variables as possible and which individual groups and which individual people are affected by those things. I love the Fitchburg Library. I've been going there since 1957 or 58, and you can do the math and figure out how old I am, okay? I was very disappointed a couple of years ago when they cut the bookmobile. I love that the bookmobile came into my neighborhood and I could go out there with my two boys and get books. A nephew came to my house one day. He had no idea what was going on when we stopped the basketball game and ran down the street with a bag of books. But by the same token, when the bookmobile ceased operation, I still had access to the library. I still had access to all of those books, all those periodicals, all of those programs that the library still gives out. But what we're talking here would create a step that stops people's availability to a lot of those things. And the people who it would stop are those who need it the most. So while I want to try to be as fair as we can with all the departments, and I have no problem in cutting the head librarian's proposed increase the way all the other department heads have been cut, and let the mayor figure out a way to put that back into the budget so that they can keep their certification. That's as far as I think we should be considering with this budget, because this library is essential to those most in need. Are there ways in the long run that we can maybe streamline the library and make it run better and more efficiently and on less money? Probably. That could be said for every department in the city. It could probably be said for every business in every household. But we got to keep our eye on who gets affected by this. Thank you.
Is that in the form of a motion? Councilor Diamatti, please.
If I could just ask everybody here, I just indicated how I felt, and I appreciate that some folks here agree with me. But everybody understand, there are 11 people sitting here, and none of us has an easy task, okay? This is a very painful process for every one of us. There's not good guys and bad guys. There's not right and wrong. There's a whole group of people trying to get this city back on its feet and headed in a direction where all services, whether it be the library, the fire, the police, the school, the DPW, all of them are providing better services for the residents of Fitchburg, because that's the goal. But, you know, don't pit us one against the other because you like what one says in relationship to the library, but you don't like what one says in relationship to the fire department or the DPW. That's just not appropriate or right now. Mr. President, my understanding was that our initial meeting with the library, there was a motion and voted on to hold.
No, we continued the library to this evening.
I know we continued the discussion, but at one point during that process, there was a motion, I thought. Was there not?
Or was that just in general?
That might have
Because
been covered in the general motion.
that was just on the overall motion that Councilor Conry had made. There had been no individual line item cuts to the library.
I'll make a motion that the chief librarian position be funded at $68,484.
$68,748,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mr. Saracen, is it?
748.
Yeah, $68,748, the change for the couple of days. I'm sorry.
Motion made and seconded to reduce the chief librarian's salary from $75,482 to $68,748. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None in opposition. Councilor Caddy.
In the budget that was presented to us, it shows that the Sunday wages, which would be the first page, the second to the last line, it says Sunday wages, $12,434. But the budget reductions by the auditor shows that same amount, but on that line, it says Sunday wages and overtime. Is that the way it was supposed to read? On the budget, it just
Yeah,
says Sunday wages.
Yeah, it includes overtime.
So in the
I
budget,
just
you put
added
Sunday
that.
wages, but that also includes overtime.
Yes, it does.
Do we know the difference between the two?
No, I don't.
I have the number, but it would take me a minute to locate it.
Is that doable, to close Sundays?
If we close Sundays, that means we have to add one more hour somewhere else during the week, and the amount of money you're going to save is not that much, and it would have to be added into the budget somewhere else to maintain certification. There's a lot riding on Sundays. It's a good thing that we're open on Sunday. Why should we eliminate the one positive? It's there for the school kids doing their homework, and the library, as any librarian in the room will attest to, is busy with people studying on a Sunday. The Sunday Performing Arts Series would be canceled for the entire year. Is it possible? Yes, the trustees would have to decide. I would not be in favor of it. I don't think you'd be saving much at all. We've already taken the salaries out of Sunday. The staff has agreed to take that day off some other day of the week. So there's no staff except for student workers and one college student and our custodian that opens the building included in that Sunday wage line. We didn't feel it was right to penalize the high school student that works on Sunday and the college student. The other people working on Sunday work during the week and will take a different day off. So it really has come down to an overtime budget and minimal staffing on a Sunday.
Anything else on page 36? Moving on to page, yes, Mr. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that line on Sunday wages is still $12,434.
Yes, it is. It was a lot higher in the past. I mean, look at FY06, total spent $18,754.
I make a motion, we cut Sunday wages.
Second.
To zero?
Zero.
You have now jeopardized our certification without moving that money into another line item.
Motion made and seconded to cut salary Sunday overtime from $12,434 to zero. Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will reiterate what the chief librarian said. All along, the certification has been the issue for me. And we're going to decertify this library. I think we're taking a risk and jeopardizing a service for those who most need it, and I would be opposed to the proposed motion. Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
On the motion, how long have we been open for on Sundays? How far does that go back?
Many, many years. We've certainly had the Sunday Performing Arts Series since the mid-'70s, so there have been times when the library is closed on Sunday and only open for the Performing Arts Series, and that was shown not to work. It doesn't work with the configuration of the building, and I would not do it again. If we were not open on Sunday, the Sunday Performing Arts Series would end. There may have been, but I wasn't here. I couldn't speak to it.
Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino.
Is the library open every Sunday?
Except in July and August.
So it's closed for July and
Right.
August because of holidays?
It's during, when the kids aren't in school, there's not very many people using the building, so we do close on Sunday in the summer.
And the 1st of July starts the new budget, and then August, so those 2
It's
months are
June. I'm trying to think, let's see. It's, the library is closed on Sundays from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend. That's right. So it's It's all of June, July, and August. I think I got that right.
This is to go back to Councillor Hay. Everybody in this room knows and understands the importance of the library and the education, and we don't need to be preached to. So I take a little umbrage with you, Councillor Hay, about making the statement. Everything you said, we already know that. The one thing I want to get out there to everybody is that if we don't do our job and the state comes in, we will have nothing. They come in, they take over, they do our job. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're here to try to balance a budget that was unbalanced. It's very clear. I mean, we'd love to give you more money. We think the library needs repair. We know wonderful people go to it. But our job before us tonight is very clear, to try to balance this budget. We're told by the unions, you can't do this because we're in negotiations. Everybody comes back at us. So, you know, we must try to understand what we're doing. And I know that Councillor Hayes is going to come back at me. Thank you.
Councillor Boisvert?
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Sunday wages, first of all, what are your operating hours during the week?
We're open from 9 to 8:30, Monday through Thursday, Friday 9 to 5, Saturday 9 to 5, and Sunday 1 to 5.
And instead of closing at 8:30, wouldn't we be able to make up some of this Sunday time by closing it at 9 instead, and increasing your operating hours accordingly during the week?
It's possible, yes. You could open later, be open later in the week. That's all possible. Sunday is a good thing, and I would hate to see it end.
But it's from your own admission, Sunday is all overtime, is that correct?
Sunday is not. Most of that money is used to pay the student worker, the college student who works on Sunday, the one custodian who opens the building, and all the staff that regularly work during the week are taking a Sunday wage, taking that another day off during the week instead of Sunday. So nobody is getting paid regular staff to work on Sunday.
But could we not save the hours of operation that you would lose on Sunday by increasing your hours during the week?
You could, but you're really not going to save that much money. You're paying the money is the wages, the personnel. People, if they're not working one day of the week, they work a different day of the week. You'd be laying off employees, which we are doing. We've lost 8 employees in this year. Right. We have reduced our payroll.
I believe that the savings would be enough to offset what you would lose on Sundays.
And like I said, though, if you take the money, you have to put it into building maintenance or something else.
Well, gee, I hate to tell you this, the building needs maintenance. So maybe that'd be the right place to put it.
A lot of people that have donated to the Performing Arts Series will be very disappointed that they're...
We're very disappointed in this budget. We as councilors are very disappointed in this budget. We're disappointed in the fact that we don't have enough money to keep 83 employees to the city. We're very disappointed in that. And we're cutting every place we possibly can. If it takes closing the library on Sunday and shifting your hours a bit during the week, so be it.
From this point, I'd appreciate the discussion coming through the chair, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Councilor DeSalvatore.
Well, I believe it's been stated that there is no overtime being used for Sunday. There's not an awful lot for our kids to do in our city right now. We're in the summer, sometimes during the winter, and on a weekend. Different strokes for different folks. Some kids go to the movies, some kids want to go to the library. I appreciate knowing that somebody's using the library on a Sunday. I don't think there's enough savings by cutting out Sundays. I think we end up losing too much by cutting out Sundays. You talk about the arts, and I believe we need to emphasize on the arts. So I'm for holding the Sundays and for standing with Councillor Hay. Thank you.
Mr. President, I do have the numbers for
Please.
Sunday.
No, I would just...
Sunday total...
Excuse me. No more discussion through the chair. When I call, it's Counselor Hay's spot to talk. We're going to go to Counselor Hay. Okay, this is a council discussion at this point. Not to be rude, but this is a council discussion at this point. Counselor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I regret that Councilor DiMartino feels that I was trying to tell the council what to do or what the facts were. I have always been of the mind that this council and our debates are an opportunity for each of us to express our feelings, our thoughts, and our beliefs. And in the time that I've been doing that, I would hope that I've never took umbrage for another councilor doing that. Thank you.
Counselor Caddy.
We have a motion on the floor to take out the monies for Sundays. I'm not going to vote for that. But an alternative that maybe we haven't explored, where we're 3 hours over the what's allowed by the state. And you could be right, we could be dangerously close to losing our certification. I'd like to think that the state works within reason. Have you thought about reducing the hours of the library every day by 1 hour? Every day. Especially during warm weather, where people aren't out either early or late, or cold weather, where they're not out early or late. It seems to me if you cut that 1 hour day by the staff, you probably would easily get to this 32,000, and I don't think we'd upset the state that much, because we're doing our part.
Is that?
There's a motion on the floor, I can't make a motion.
No, I was just wondering. Counselor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. I sent our other counselors a thing from the Boston Globe that I saw on the internet about libraries closing in the state of Massachusetts, and ours being cut. Medway and Northbridge and Saugus has cut their library out completely. Something that we don't want to do. I've received a lot of phone calls and letters. People have been very nice and very cordial, for the most part. And generally, they'll call. A couple of callers have called me and said, well, we're against closing the library. And I said, well, there's no plan to close the library. We might think about closing it on Sundays. And the reaction has been, well, that's okay. I didn't know it was open on Sundays. It's a luxury. That's some of the reactions I've gotten. I don't know how many libraries in the Commonwealth are open on Sundays. But it's something that we have to look at. We are $750,000 in the hole. We're fighting to get to zero. We have no reserves. We're fighting to get to zero. And we've been doing that the last 2 weeks. I bring this out respectfully. If it goes down, it's up to the council. Thank you.
Counselor Connery.
I'd just like to make a comment, if I may, Mr. President. I don't think that people who have not been involved with the Sunday afternoon performing arts series may not understand that these bookings are made a long time in advance. Contracts are signed. It would be unfair to those sponsors of these events for us to close the library on a Sunday afternoon, because not only would the people not be able to go to these concerts, but I believe that those sponsors would have to pay for those contracts. So this, for one reason, I would not support this. Thank you.
I guess I'm down to the end of the list. I mean, I've seen a lot of issues that we've had that have been fair and right and fair and not right. And this one just doesn't fit that category. Because it's just, there's a very good argument in both cases to keep it open, where you're only paying minimal help to work that day, And then there's the other thing that says we need to continue on our mission. There's some cuts that have been proposed that I have thought that were just not right cuts, and I haven't supported those cuts. And this one is just, a coin toss, because it's just that it could stay open on Sunday. It's costing us minimal amount of money. The $12,000 isn't going to get us, well, it will get us closer to our goal, but will it set us back in where we want to be as a city? And I think that that's one of the major factors that I think we need to continue to weigh as we go forward. So this is a tough call. It's a good motion, but I just don't think I can support this motion, because I really feel that there's things happening on Sunday that people that are the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then there's no such thing as 9 to 5 anymore. And so I think that every time that you make a resource like this available, it should be available. I just know, because I'm not a 9 to 5 guy anymore. Councilors, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 2 in favor. All those opposed. 9 in opposition. Moving on to page 37, library expenses. Councilor Caddy.
I just did the quick math with 13 employees at a reduction of 5 hours each a week at $10 an hour, which I'm sure is a low figure. The total is 65 hours a week. At $10 an hour, $650 a week times 52 weeks is $33,500. That's at $10. So it may be less than 5 hours. It may be 3 hours that you'd have to cut the employees. It could be an early day one day or a late day the other day, and it could be staggered, and your hours may not even change. But we can't add to the budget. All we can do is reduce it, so just an idea. Thank you.
Councilor Connery.
Mr. President, through you, to Ann, could you tell me and the council what you requested for fiscal 2008 on the expense side? We're showing $324,400. How much did you request initially?
I don't have the exact figure of my initial request, but that was pretty close to the initial request. Because instead, I was requested to, if I remember this right, cut payroll, level fund payroll, and cut expenses to $300,000. And what I did instead was offer to use personnel expense instead and keep expenses up in a reasonable fashion based on past expenditure. So I'd say that $324,400 is pretty darn close to what I originally requested.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion here that we refer the remainder of this library budget to our final discussions, because if we make any cuts here, we're going to jeopardize the certification.
Is that a form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Motion made and seconded to defer the remainder of the discussion on page 37 to our final discussion tomorrow evening.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
That's not a good chair amount.
I think its motion's already gone by. Did I miss a hand? So-
Again, I can't tell them what they should and shouldn't do, but if they do have a, I'm sure they do, a library trustees that they, if it's, I'm not sure if it's improper or not, but to go into an executive session to see what they can do for us with some of the ideas that were brought in front of them, so that we are all working together on the same page and hopefully implement something as we readdress this on Tuesday evening.
Respectfully, Counselor, I think that whatever discussions we have is the city's own discussions, This is the municipal portion of the budget. If there's any resolution or whatever needs to be done would need to be done on the municipal side. We have the responsibility to do what we need to do. The trustees have the responsibility to do what they need to do. If we have to resolve a budget issue, it's a municipal budget. And I really would not want to tap to the trustees to bail us out or anything other than what they would do if something happens. I think we still have to step up to the plate to say we are going to do this or we're not going to do this, and these are the reasons why.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Five-minute recess.
Jody,
And I'd just like to give you a brief overview of the budget. I believe you've had your packet for a couple of weeks, and I'm sure I've had time to review it. So we'll keep our portion short and allow you folks time to ask questions that we can address. I did want to begin by mentioning some of the highlights of where we've come in the school department. And one of those is we are completing the first of a 2-year implementation plan to bring full-day, universal, free kindergarten to all of the students in the Fitchburg Public Schools. And one of the things we do in the school department is, in addition to living within our budget, we try to generate as much revenue as possible through such things as the full-day kindergarten initiative, which actually will double per pupil the amount of Chapter 70 revenue that it brings in. The half-day students receive half as much Chapter 70 money, full-day students receive the full amount. So that has been, in addition to bringing quality educational programs to young children, which is a national initiative, it does generate revenue through Chapter 70. We've also implemented the Fitchburg Arts Academy Pilot School, formerly known as the Museum Partnership School. It's now a school of its own, housed at Academy on the 4th floor with its own principal, and it's an independent, it's a public school, but it's its own school program. We also have proceeded with, and were recently, only last Friday, did our superintendent and a group of staff members from Academy meet with the state review panel and receive final approval. But we have transformed, it's called converted Academy Middle School, rather than being declared chronically underperforming, into a Commonwealth pilot school under the aegis of the Board of Education, the Department of Education, Center for Collaborative Education. That's an exciting new venture. We submitted letters of interest to the Mass School Building Authority, and that was after a very extensive panel and team, I believe headed by Mr. Romano, investigated, visited, examined, and looked at every one of our school buildings and developed a comprehensive report. And we did submit a letter of interest, hoping to participate in that program once it's reopened, I think later this year. We also converted our alternative high school program into, again, similar to what we did with MPS, now the Fitchburg Arts Academy. We converted our alternative program from a school within a school of Fitchburg High School into its own school, housed at the Goodrich Street School. It's a wonderful facility. They're making great use of the site. And I know the data, it's just numbers, but they graduated 117 seniors, many of whom, about a third of whom were from out of district. So they bring in, again, looking at exemplary programs as a revenue source, they do bring in a lot of school choice funds through that program. And it's a great program as its own school. We, in reference to the EQA report, which we were looking at last year when we built the budget, the recommendation the EQA made was that we facilitate curriculum development and job-embedded professional development through a system that's being utilized throughout the state, and particularly in mathematics. So we initiated math coaches, and they are teaching staff who provide just-in-time support in the classroom
for teachers implementing our math programs. Again, it's the kind of program that the state is actually mandating in the Commonwealth pilot schools, so we'll be doing that at Academy as well. And we also, through a reorganization at the high school, using funds that we had, instituted curriculum facilitators. They're not department heads, it's not the assistant principal for curriculum, but they really are curriculum facilitators working on common assessments and exemplary practices in their curriculum areas at the high school. And then we also, one of our initiatives last year was to bring in as many of the out-of-district special education students as possible without compromising their programs, of course, but as a way to actually provide good services in the city for students who are out of district, and also to capture some of the revenue. Out-of-district special ed programs are very costly, transportation is very costly, and we did actually realize the opportunity to bring 6 of those students back. And I know our special education director is continuously surveying the landscape for ways to maximize our public school programs for students who are in out-of-district placements. So that's sort of the context. We are very aggressive in our grant writing, and I know your packet included a summary of the grant programs. We're very aggressive at analyzing all of the features of our program to determine where we can bring revenue into the school department, again, such as through the special education analysis and or the full-day kindergarten rollout. We did include the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not really going to go through that. There are just a couple of pages. Of course, the first page after the title of the staff reductions, fiscal year 03 to fiscal year 08. And we are in the process of completing those reductions to create a balanced budget based on the numbers there. And in the fiscal year 08 column, those numbers do not have minus signs next to them, but those are the number of staff members we'd be laying off. And they include every category: teachers, nurses, paraprofessionals, maintenance staff, clerical, administration. In some cases, they're not layoffs where folks are retiring. We are not filling those positions, and those of us who remain are taking on the responsibilities of those folks. The grant page, just one of the points, quick point about grants is many of these are non-competitive federal flow-through dollars, but we don't determine the funding we receive. They do. And at this time, we did just last week receive our Title I dollars, and it's not a 2% change. It's about 100.01% increase. So that increase figure is not true. And our other titles, these are the federal dollars, we still don't have the allocation. We develop a budget and staffing pattern and program implementation plan based on level funding, and then at some point in the summer, we'll receive the actual dollars from the Department of Education and have to amend our budgets. And then there are a few grants that were multi-year grants, such as this comprehensive school reform grant, and those are no longer available to us. They run 3 years, 1 to 3 years, and then they stop. The revenue sources, and I'll leave the real dollars and facts and figures for Mr. Chabrou. The next page, the Fitchburg Public Schools Budget Joint Committee, it details the kinds of accounts and the net school spending and Chapter 70 allocation, et cetera. The indirect costs, again, I believe you probably heard that previously. If you have questions, we're happy to answer them. The funding priorities for fiscal year 08, these are really important to me. I'm the program person, Tom's the money person. But the expansion to universal full-day kindergarten, that is a non-negotiable to us for all the right reasons in terms of programs to children, but also because it does increase our Chapter 70 funding. Technology infrastructure improvements to meet state requirements. The superintendent did survey the school committee at the beginning of the budget process, and technology was one of their priorities. And we also, many of our reports, we can only do them online. And even the MCAS test they're talking about making available in an online version to facilitate retesting within the next couple of years. So for us, this is a really important priority. The student achievement issues required under No Child Left Behind, I could talk to you for a week about all the mandates, but the reality is we must comply with that agenda. So a lot of our priorities are in line with that. Facility maintenance and security. The security issue was one of the issues that was noted when the school building facilities group was touring our sites. So that is a priority, and we really have to get a handle. I know we've had a couple of tough years with leaky roofs and et cetera. And this year, B.F. Brown and Crocker boilers and the relocation of the Crocker students for almost 2 weeks to the high school facility issues are really important. And then the priority of 100% highly qualified and licensed staff. Just to be aware, there are aspects of No Child Left Behind that went into effect as of July 1st, 2006. And we can no longer hire staff members, teachers who are not certified. And although when we run into time limits, sometimes we have to, we need to have a very aggressive plan, and actually the federal government is requiring us to develop a personnel action plan to meet that goal. We had to submit it on June 15th, so that's again an NCLB compliance issue. There's a history of funding, recommended reductions, and I just want to give you a picture, a snapshot. We began discussions with all of our administrators, principals, and directors about the budget cut that we had to make to create a balanced budget. And this was a very interactive process over many weeks, many hours, with everyone at the table talking about what their share of the cuts would be for their school or department. And we really worked at building consensus about where these figures came from. So that when the day ended, the budget would be presented first to the school committee and now to you, everyone in the room shared an understanding of what was being done, why, what was important, and how they contributed. I can't say anyone was happy about it, but we all came to consensus about what the it was. The recommended reductions are there. The revenue, transportation, school choice, and the school choice revenue dollars won't be firmed up until sometime this summer. We do an end of the year student information report, and it firms up the actual full-time equivalents. Every day that we have a student on school choice is calculated into this figure. And then the rest is your munis budget by school and department, summary of the grants, and then just for reference, the enrollment, sort of the enrollment spreadsheet that we use to determine our annual rollovers for the student body, and that's how we calculate the number of sections we need. So that's sort of the overview, Mr. Chagru.
Basically, as Paul indicated to you, when we started this process, to maintain our existing level of services, our budget would have been 47 million plus. We were told we had to reduce that number to 44, so we did initiate approximately $3 million in reductions, including the staff. In your munis document, you can see every line that was reduced and how much the reductions were on those given lines. This is what had to be done to get us to the 44.1 that we're talking now. If I can answer questions for you, specifics instead of just generalities.
Councilor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Paula, and school committee members for being here. Is the city meeting its maintenance of effort?
Based on the projections from the Department of Education, this budget will not meet the maintenance of effort. It will be about $660,000 below level.
And what happens with that?
Actually, the law does allow that to happen if you drop 5% below your maintenance of effort numbers. Then the subsequent year, you have to fully fund the budget plus add that additional difference into your budget.
How are we currently splitting up the Medicaid and Medicare?
At this point in time, the city is taking the entire amount.
Entire amount?
There is an agreement that if it exceeds the baseline of 1.2, then we will split the monies. But the revenue is not exceeding that point at this.
How many curriculum facilitators do we have, Paula?
At the high school, there, I believe, well, there were 5 this year. I'm not sure if there would be 5 or 6. They're in the budget, they're funded, and they're by department major content areas. So whether or not there would be one for humanities covering world languages, that's kind of still a discussion item.
So there's one for math, there's
One
one
for
science.
English language arts, one for science, one for social studies, that's correct.
The school department contracts are all taken care of?
Yes,
All of them?
all except one employee group.
What group would that be?
That'd be the administration.
Are all the others on a 3-year cycle?
Yes.
The transportation policy has been changed?
Transportation policy has actually not been changed.
Not yet? Or does it have plans to be
It
changed?
doesn't have to be changed to accommodate what we'll be doing next year.
And the transportation contract, do we have a year left with that?
This will be the final year of that contract.
This is the final year of the contract. And the timetable, Paul, do we have any idea about the timetable for the SBAB?
No.
When they may be coming back with some sort of, no?
I think it opens at some point after July 1st, but the mission we had was to get it
Getting
in
it in, yes.
before July 1st, so that we would be in the pipeline.
And we are.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Hay.
Or if we could just look at the staff reductions, 03 to 08 page that you have there. My question is, the 08 with the 36s has the asterisk. Those are all reductions, correct? Just making a observation or a comment. If you go from 03 in teachers and you bring it across and you total them, you're going to have 98. Nurses, of course, is the minus 2.5. Then you're going to have paras and aides, minus 41.5. Maintenance is 9. Clerical is 10.5. Administration is 8. I just see an imbalance in reduction in teachers, in aides, in relationship to administration. I know you need people to run the programs, but when you're looking at 169.5 total, of which 8 come from administration, 98 are teachers, and 41 are the paras and the aides. And it's not a one-year deal. I mean, a couple of years ago, the argument was that the year before, the administration had taken a hit. Well, we're looking from 03 at -2, -2, -1, 0, -1, and -2. And to me, as valuable as administrators are, the on-hands, in-class people are of the greatest value and should be the last to get cut. Thank you.
I guess my question would be to Mr. Shagru. Do you know how much the total teacher's contract is costing the city for FY08?
Just the teacher's contract? I don't have it broken down that way.
Give us a rough idea. You know what you're in the negotiations.
Pardon?
Give us a rough idea.
All the
Bennies,
contracts for this year are going
salaries.
to cost us about $630,000. I don't believe I broke that down individually, though.
Okay, so all the contracts is 600 and I just want to commend, I know that I saw all of those committee meetings and watched them, the pain that you went through and all of the dealings with the union, but that's a lot of jobs for 2%.
637,000.
That could have been saved for 2%. And I know that we, as the council, don't have control on the school committee budget, but that's a lot of jobs. Councilor DiMartino.
The city gave 44 million. What is your rough estimate? What is your real budget when you add up everything?
Everything? Close to 60 million.
60 million.
If you actually be a little bit higher than that, if you add in the indirect costs,
Yes.
it would actually be a little over that.
Okay.
And the grants.
And this year I noticed, did you get an increase in Medicaid from the city?
No, we did not.
No?
We received, the school department received no money from Medicaid.
What's this line here? Am I reading something wrong then? Is that wrong?
That's a projected.
Yeah.
This year, it will be 1.2. I'm not seeing any of that.
Oh, I see.
We're hoping next year to have.
So you're projecting again. We don't like that word anymore.
We're not using that number in our budget.
Yeah, I wouldn't use that word too loudly either. No,
We're not
no.
using that number in our budget.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I had,
Any further comments, questions? Councilor DiMartino.
I seen it in somewhere, I had to leave. I seen somewhere along here about textbooks. Was there a decrease in the money for textbooks this year?
We've always put in a line item for, our plan is to have a grade level a year across the city adopt a textbook in a content area. It's nowhere near as ambitious as it should be, but textbook adoption is very expensive. And we've put that in again for next year. I'm forever hopeful.
I've always been, yeah, it's in there.
Right, it's a $40,000 amount. That is about what it costs for textbook adoption program.
I've always been amazed, not just this year, but for 14 years, with a 60, well, now you have a 60 million, you didn't always have that we don't have enough textbooks. It never seemed to sit right with me, that we've never had enough textbooks with that kind of a budget. And it's one of my pet peeves. So every year that I come, I say that, so I wouldn't want to go away and not say it again this year. So that's about the size of that. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Clark.
Just a note, Mr. President, I mentioned it here before, but, and like you, you watched the school committee members and meetings, and you saw what they went through, and you hear that the superintendent brought his department heads in, and they went over everything, and there was consensus. I hope we see that here. It's never too late. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you very much.
Councilor Hay.
Mr. President, if I could request just 1 minute before we go to the next hearing, I would have...
I didn't hear you.
If I could request 1 minute before we get to the next group?
Sure.
Thank you. I'll be right back.
Thank you.
No. Heated it up.
I know I do sign the damn things. I should be sitting here, huh?
Moving on to page 25, Board of Health, Personal Services. Amount requested, $584,685. Amount allowed by the mayor, $464,822. Good evening, Mr. Jurassic. How are you?
I'd like to introduce Joanne Sozik. She's the chairperson for the Board of Health for this past year.
Good evening.
She got to sign this budget.
Lucky me.
Oh, there's a name on this one. Councilors? Councilor Boisvert.
Yes, through you, Mr. President. Senior sanitary inspector, I noticed that it's been cut in half. Is there any reason for that? Are we going half-time, or?
Well, that position's going to be eliminated in sometime in January.
It's being eliminated?
Position's being cut in January.
All right, thank you.
For what reason?
Probably to slide into the director's position, if the board so chooses.
Councilor DiMartino.
Principal clerk is gone.
Yeah, she left last Friday.
Of her own choice.
Well, the position was cut from my budget and the retirement in the building department, so she went upstairs. Wasn't supposed to leave until July 1st, but being a team player that I am, they asked if I would allow her to go upstairs, and I did.
Thank you.
The $30,000 that you have in there for overtime, who collects the $30,000 in overtime?
It's the scale master at the landfill and my employee that works the landfill on the weekends. That overtime is paid through my solid waste agreement by Waste Management at no cost to the city of Fitchburg. It's a reimbursable item.
Councilor Cruz.
Under your inspectors here currently, are any of these, I'm assuming these inspectors are all here currently, are any of them projected to be funded through CBDG funding?
Under this present contract, if you look down below less CDGB funds, one position is sliding back over to block grant.
And that position is?
Sanitary code. It would be the last man in on the sanitary code inspector.
So that line item, which is 0 now, will be funded through CBDG?
Correct.
Thank you.
No. The one above it.
One above the 0.
Right.
$52,931.
Thank you.
It's not adding a new inspector. Councilor Conry.
Why the reduction in the public health nurse?
It was through a retirement, the last public health nurse had a number of years in, so she was higher up on the pay scale. And I was able to hire the new public health nurse at a lower rate.
Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino.
What does the overtime consist of?
The overtime consists of the scale master, the person that runs the scale at the landfill, working extra hours. The landfill operates 7:30 to 3, Monday through Friday, but we have a lot of construction projects going on, whether it be gas collection, expansion at the landfill. We have to have somebody at the scale house weighing the material that comes in, goes out that sort of thing. So that individual that's an employee of the Board of Health will work those extra hours. Also, I have a inspector on Saturday mornings out of my office that works this scale, and that's the other overtime account.
Now, the inspector that works on Saturday morning, does he work through the full week, or that's just a half a day that he takes?
He works under the city budget Monday through Friday, and he opted to work a half-day at the landfill.
So you have two people that work all week long in their own job, and then they work at the weekend as well?
One person works the landfill 5 days a week. The inspector works Saturdays.
Okay.
Or an inspector will work Saturdays.
Okay.
If one can't make it, one of the guys will fill in to cover it.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing else on page 25? Moving on to page 26, Board of Health Administration. Amount requested, $55,896. Amount allowed by the mayor, $43,600. I guess I could. How much revenue does the weights and measure person generate?
The weights and measures is a contracted service. It's no longer a city employee.
Right.
That was done away the last time we had to make budget cuts in the Board of Health. That's a contracted service, and his last bill for last year was $14,000. The amount of money that is generated in revenue, we'll probably bring in around about $7,000, $8,000.
So the city, we pay, everything that we collect, we pay towards the contract.
Correct.
And I guess my concern is that there's revenues out there that could be generated through weights and measures if it was a city position, and there are scales that are probably not being weighed because we don't have that, because we use that as a contracted service?
No, every scale in the city of Fitchburg is checked by the state inspector. I disagree with the fact that you can generate that kind of income. I think the last salary for the weights and measures person was probably $45,000 to $50,000. No way you can generate that kind of revenue on weights and measures. In addition, bennies, time off, that sort of thing. I thought this was a very good deal that I struck for the city of Fitchburg myself, but if you want to put a person on, you'll never generate the amount of money that it's going to cost for salaries and fringes.
Even if it's not a full-time person?
Possibly you can do it that way, but you'd have to make investment in equipment. I haven't looked at it recently, but I'm sure that it's probably in the range of $50,000 to do startup and that sort of thing, get somebody trained, that sort of thing. Other communities do it, but it's barely break even at best. You know, it's your call. The fees, as far as the rates for the scales and those sort of things, can be raised by the city council. That's not under the Board of Health's jurisdiction. This was another position that was bounced around from many departments and ended up in my lap.
Councilor Hay.
If I
Mr. President, could we go back to 25? Could I ask a question on that? I had something come up after. Mr. Jurassic, you had indicated that the senior sanitary inspector was only half funded, and that's because there's the possibility that that position would be eliminated and that person would move up. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we have half of 60, and then I'm presuming, am I correct, that the funding for that individual would then come out of the director's position. So are we presuming that the half that's in this budget plus whatever they take out of the second half of the director's thing, I presume it won't be the whole thing?
Correct.
So there should be some money left over in that director's line item if,
To cover the rest of the year, yes.
well, more than cover the rest of the year.
Depends on what the starting salary.
Salary is. If the starting salary isn't the same.
Cut down $6,000 to begin with, and I don't know if you're going to get a director that's going to come in and take on the duties and responsibilities with a few less people and possibly a lot more responsibility.
I guess my thought is you've been here for a number of years and have earned to get where you are. I just didn't know where we would start when we fit that in. So there's a little bit of flux there.
Yeah, there could definitely be some play in that salary position.
Thank you.
But if everything comes down the pipe like it may happen, I wouldn't do it for less.
Appreciate your honesty. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Connery?
Mr. President, I just have a comment, a question for Mr. Jurassic. I'm glad to see that you don't give up on the code enforcement lawyer. It's in there, but again, cut by the mayor.
Figured I'd give it one more try.
Any reason that he cut it?
I think financial situation in the city of Fitchburg was probably.
Thank you.
Is there anticipation of putting the dog officer, why isn't the dog officer in your budget? Where is that dog officer?
I don't know, nobody's discussed the position with me.
I guess I'll ask the head of the chairman of the Board of Health. I mean, a city this size requires that the city have an animal control officer. I would imagine that's a matter of public health, rabies, all of the other things, dog licensing. What's the intention of the Board of Health if that position does not get funded?
Just,
No, I'll go for the board.
well, I'm
Just-
sure that situations would arise that are being taken care of now that won't get taken care of. I mean, I don't, I have to defer to Jeff because he's thought about this
Okay.
in a fiscal sense.
You want me to answer?
Sure.
General laws of Massachusetts, 140, I believe it's 151, section 151, states that the police department would be responsible. The city ordinance, I believe it's chapter 84, says that the mayor shall appoint a dog officer or police officer to enforce the animal control laws. That's also city ordinance. The vicious dog law in, again, in chapter 140, section 157, states that a vicious dog can be ordered out of Dodge or destroyed at the signing of the Board of Selectmen or Chief of Police. Nowhere in any of these general laws or ordinances does it state that the Board of Health is responsible for it. There are issues that relate to health issues such as rabies and that sort of thing. As far as licensing, that's done through Anna's office. And as far as the rabies situation, I'll deal with it the best way I know how. But nobody's discussed a game plan at this point in time.
Okay. Counselor Donnelly.
There's another health issue not on this page. The water department, someone suggested cutting fluoridation. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do.
Me too.
We didn't want to cut it without your expert consultation.
Well, I had a sticky, but I must have lost it. But anyway, this goes back into the, I believe it was the 69, actually it started in 63. Eventually, the board voted on fluoridation in 69. I believe it was in 73 that the board and the city council approved fluoridation in the city of Fitchburg's water. People a lot smarter than myself have basically come out, whether it be the Surgeon General, and have stated that despite worldwide improvements in oral health, non-fluoridated communities have higher rates of tooth decay than fluoridated communities. Higher decay rates translate into higher costs borne for private and publicly, and more pain for the individuals. There has been shown no evidence of health problems due to fluoridation by CDC in Atlanta, Georgia. I think it's a good bang for the buck. I know, not scientifically, but other communities where relatives live, that used to live in the city of Fitchburg, and the kids that came up behind them have had more dental problems than when they lived in the city of Fitchburg, for what that is worth.
Just a little, there was, the water department was saying, they cited the cost and I believe the toxicity of the fluoride or whatever actual chemical it is that they put in. But the other thing they were talking about is now more and more people, children included, using bottled water versus drinking tap water. So that's where the question of how much usage and
Well, I think that the number that the city of Fitchburg probably spends for fluoride is probably in about $55,000 a year, or something along that line. If you figure the number of kids that are in the city of Fitchburg that can avoid going to the dentist for, even if it's 55 kids, it's $1,000 a whack to go to a dentist nowadays. I think it's a small price to pay for possible some protection for some individuals that might not get it. And not everybody in the city of Fitchburg can afford bottled water.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 26? We'll move on to page 27. Sanitary landfill. Amount requested, $785,000. Amount allowed, $749,000. Councilor Donnelly.
President, this money is generated money, correct?
I cover my costs for both collection and disposal through the solid waste agreement.
So I guess the question is, on the request and amount given, is there any reason it was cut?
Well, on the, this is the disposal part of it. My disposal costs run me between $50,000 $5,000 and $65,000 a month. I have done some things that have brought that cost down a little bit. So the mayor asked for another bit of money, and I thought I could, this is based on $60,000 a month disposal fees. And I think I probably can live within that, because by implementing some changes that I did at the drop-off area, I've dropped my cost of operating the drop-off area from roughly $8,000 to $9,000 a month down to $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
That cost savings, how did you find that cost savings? What did we, as a city, lose as a service, or what other means did you find to gain that money?
Basically, I was able to cut the hours at the landfill down for number of operating hours, and got a better deal from Waste Management on the host community fee.
Now, is that the part that limits City of Fitchburg residents from going all week long?
Correct.
We are down to how many days per week?
3.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a total of 2? Is it 2 half-days and a full day, or is it 2 full days and a half day?
Basically, it's 2 full days and a half.
2 full days and a half. Councilor DiMartino?
As you know, Mr. Jersey, a lot of people complain about that because they don't seem to have the access to the landfill that they used to have. And you said you saved how much in doing that? You saved some money doing that.
Yes.
But then it comes down here, and we go back, and then you've got a line item for overtime. Does that not contradict the situation a bit?
No.
It doesn't?
Has nothing to do with it.
I know it's 2 separate issues.
2 separate issues. It's paid by Waste Management.
Okay, it's paid by...
I can't make a connection.
Okay, it's paid by Waste Management, the overtime is?
Correct.
Okay, I wasn't clear about that. Thank you very much.
Moving on to page 28. Board of Health rubbish removal, amount requested $1,055,250. Amount allowed by the mayor, $955,250. Councilor DiMartino.
I see here that you put in for white goods and you got a 0.
Yeah, I was requested to give a price for going back to collecting white goods and CRTs.
Yeah. It's a service that's deeply missed in the city.
Well, I think it's people's responsibility to take care of their own waste myself.
I still say, I understand that, but it's a service that most people talk
If
about.
I can go on about it. These, again, are mandated by the state that we have to implement. I've been arguing when they implement these waste bans, these businesses that sell these items should be required to take them back at little or no cost. And this has not been the case at all. And it's put back on the city of Fitchburg or the communities in general. City of Fitchburg does have the luxury where other communities don't even have a landfill or a drop-off area. They're paying significantly more than what we're paying in disposal costs, and they don't get money from a host community fee in return that covers those costs either.
I have another question. Mr. Jersey, do you see a trash fee a reality in the next 2 years? You don't know?
I really don't know. it's a possibility. Other communities are doing it.
Thank you.
After January 1.
That's why I said in the next 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the support. No problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hay, I'm sorry.
Contract fees, 805, 890 to 949, 250. Are those things that are already established, or are those projections?
No, that's the new bid. Under solid waste, any solid waste item usually can be negotiated, or you can do a contract extension. I've done a number of contract extensions over the years to keep the cost down. This was the last year of our contract. The purchasing agent thought that we might get a better deal if we went out to bid, and we got hammered.
We did. Thank you.
We got hammered, and part of it is the bid process. The way they structure things, they pigeonhole you, they hold you to unit pricing, which really drives up the cost of me being able to freewheel. And it really hurt us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to page 18. Good evening. Council on Aging, Personal Services. Amount requested, $127,553. Amount allowed by the mayor, $127,208. Councilor DiMartino.
Program coordinator, that is now a half-time position?
It has been, but it's a half-time position.
Is that given by a grant, or that comes out of the budget?
Part of the position, the $59.51, is from the city portion. The other piece, the $7,800, is from the formula grant.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Boisvert.
Do we have to address the executive director's salary?
If you wish.
Line 1. I'll make a motion and bring that back down to the 2007 level.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reduce the executive director's salary from 50,
We're going to adjust all of them anyways.
somewhere around 59,900 to somewhere around 62,800, 59,904. Any discussion?
Question.
What is it?
The old rate at 52.2 weeks would be 60,135. So it's a cut of 2,714.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Counselor Connery.
Are these other positions, union positions?
Yes,
The senior clerk.
clerk is a union position, along with the part-time custodian that we share with the library.
And how about the program coordinator?
That is not a union position.
That's not a union position. So that's about 13,000 a year?
Yes. The program coordinator?
Yes.
Yeah, right about there.
And how many hours that?
19 hours a week,
19?
with many more on a volunteer basis.
That's grand. The senior clerk part-time position at $17,905 is a city portion, and there's another portion that is provided by the grant.
The formula grant,
So what's
the same amount.
So the total salary for that person is 35,800 or something?
Correct.
And why is there a difference of almost $3,000 in that, or over $3,000 increase in last year to this year?
Probably because she didn't start until later August. Her position, she did not start July 1st. I believe she started mid-August.
Okay. Councilor DiMartino?
Administrative assistants, that's taken out altogether this year. Is there a reason for that?
The Council on Aging Board,
Yeah.
in working with the budget, decided to remove that position from the formula grant due to the changing needs of the senior center. So they felt as though the full-time senior clerk was a more needed item.
And so in the future, that would not be replaced by somebody else?
Correct.
And how long has that person been in that job?
The administrative assistant position was actually presented to the council in 2004. Before that, it was a computer operator.
I know, but how long has that person been employed by the senior center? How many years?
I believe 8 years.
8 years. Okay, thank you. So let's go.
Moving on to page 19. Council on Aging expenses. Amount requested, $7,200. Amount allowed by the mayor, $7,200. Councilor Poirier?
Yeah, can we go back to page 18 for a minute? Clothing custodian. Is this custodian shared with the library?
Yes, it is.
And I noticed in the library, they had the same line item, $300, so that one custodian is receiving $600 a year. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct according to the building, the inspectors group, so if it's based on that contract, that's what it would be, 300 each.
Is this under, is it contracted for this?
I'm not sure, I could check. I'm not sure how, it's a contract in the building maintenance contract. I don't know if this position is under that contract.
I do know all other departments, it's a $300,
It's usually 600. I know the building department, I was able to confirm that their contract was $600, $600 a year for the building maintenance people, and that included the custodian that works at City Hall.
so that $600
Yeah,
is shared.
yes, oh yeah, it's shared. For one person, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Clark.
John, where would we see the heating and the cooling of that building in your budget?
That was presented, I believe, in the beginning of the session with Michael Gallant. And I think there was a
How to-
$15,000 reduction in the heating.
Okay, so it's under that part.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're going back on to page 19. Any questions on page 19? Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening. Moving on to page 20, Fire Personal Services. Amount requested, $6,316,963. Amount allowed by the mayor, $5,650,288.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes. Chief?
Good evening, councilors. Just a few things before we get started with any questions. This is my 13th budget that I presented as a department head for the fire department, and I think without question, it's the most distressing budget that I've seen, and I've seen some distressing budgets for the fire department. After 2003, I didn't think I'd see these kind of cuts again. In 2003, we cut 12 firefighter positions. 8 firefighters got laid off and went out the door. We put Ladder 2 out of service. We cut our dispatches per shift from 2 to 1. 9 of those 12 positions never came back in the last 4 years. In that time frame, to make up for that loss of that truck, we've more than doubled our mutual aid. In some years, tripled our mutual aid into the city, and not coming near to returning that to other communities. We've pulled trucks off emergencies to go to other more important calls, and just barely got by in many situations that were life-threatening situations to our people. Again, this year, we've been asked to cut $700,000, which this budget reflects. 9 more firefighter positions cut. We're eliminating 4 lieutenant positions, which include 3 demotions of 3 very good fire officers, lieutenants. Another engine will be put out of service, cutting our engine and ladder companies by 1/3 over the last 4 years. And 5 firefighters will be laid off Sunday. I can tell you for sure with this budget, we'll have more mutual aid called in. The fires haven't stopped in Fitchburg. We'll have to prioritize our calls on a number of occasions more often. And quite frankly, there'll be some situations that we won't be able to handle as safely as we have in the past. 18 and a half positions cut in our department in 4 years to the tune of about $1.4 million. For a public safety department that covers a city like Fitchburg, this is extremely difficult to continue under these conditions. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the councils may have.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, there's been discussions about us doing our own ambulance service. In your discussions with the mayor regarding that, what staffing would be necessary for us to put one on? And could it be done with the cuts that are in this budget as proposed by the mayor?
The mayor did instruct me a few weeks back to pursue that, Councilor. I have done that. I've worked for the last 3 weeks meeting with 4 different ambulance companies, that we came back, and Deputy Spano and myself came up with a written proposal for them to look at and respond to. We narrowed that field to 2 companies to deal with. We did that this morning. We met with the union officers this afternoon. The staffing that we have in this budget currently could not, without putting another engine company out of service. Maintaining the 5 laid-off people, not including the 4 jobs that are being eliminated due to retirements, we could run an ambulance. And we have projected some revenue, which I will let the mayor discuss with you folks, because the union just got it this afternoon of what our proposal is. That would increase staffing by 1 on the shifts, back to 15, which is still a couple of people way short of what we should be.
If I can just follow up, Chief, just want to clarify. Right now, you have 9 down this year, 4 retirements and 5 laid off.
Correct.
You could absorb the 4 retirements, not fill those positions,
That's correct.
but you would need the 5 that are proposing to be laid off in order to run the ambulance service.
And we believe the revenue would be generated to support
You
that.
think the revenue generated would pay for those positions?
Yes.
And just saying, if you add the 1, you're now at 15,
We will be at 14 Sunday morning if this budget stands the way it is.
And the number that you think is appropriate is 17?
17 is a minimum. That's where we were in 2003 before all this started. And I can tell you that if the council wishes, I can elaborate on the mutual aid. We give out, in the last 2 years, we've given out mutual aid. An average of 28 companies go out into all the communities around us. In the year 2000, before all the cuts started, we brought 45 companies in here to assist us with fires. In 2005, we called in 70 companies to assist us from surrounding towns. 2006, 72, and so far this year, 44, while returning approximately 28 companies to all the communities around us total.
At some point, will other communities stop responding to our requests?
I hope not. But I can tell you that the original intent of mutual aid wasn't to run the day-to-day operation of the city of Fitchburg. It was for large disasters and fires to come in and help us out during those. I think the council has asked me that question before. I think it was up to the fire chiefs and firefighters in surrounding towns. They wouldn't stop. I'm not so sure that the administrators in those towns that someday are going to say, wait a minute, what are we doing here?
Thank you.
Councilor Caddy.
Just want to re-question you about that ambulance. You're saying that with the 4 retirements this year, those would be lost,
And the demotions would still go into effect, council. The engine would still be put out of service no matter what.
but the 5 guys that would lose their job should be self-sufficient with an ambulance, not looking to make money, but to break even.
Yes.
And you think you can pull that off?
I hope I can, council. I think you know I've been a supporter of this for many years, and maybe we should have done it many years ago, but we haven't, and now we need to look into the future.
Yeah. We're in a tough spot. I don't know if I was going to support that during these budget hearings, but I think I will. But in the event that you're wrong, do you have monies to fall back on, in the event that you're wrong?
No. I'm looking that we would get basically a guarantee of the money to cover those jobs. And I agree with you, council, we're in a tough spot, and come Sunday morning, we got to start protecting the city with 14 people. And that is a tough spot.
Well, just to reiterate something that we all know, but just to reiterate it, I look around at some of the guys in this room, and we're getting old.
I think somebody recalculated the number with the guys laid off, and we're going to be at 51, so can you imagine I'm going to be the average?
No, I can't. We got to try to save those young guys. I'd be willing to take a shot at it and try to institute that ambulance if we can. Thank you.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question to the city auditor.
And it just doesn't direct on this budget, but it also has to do with other budgets too. Is there anywhere in our city ordinance or contracts that say that union members are afforded the same provisions under union contracts?
Well, for the rank and file above the union, I think there are ordinances for the police and fire
That's correct.
that were set years ago, and they're automatic based on a percentage, like 15% above a lieutenant, 20% above a lieutenant would be a captain, and then deputies, some are halfway between a captain and the chief. So there are ordinances already in place. And I think they were put in place so that they are automatic. Once the union gets their increase, then the city's, it's set.
And that includes all the fringe benefits under the contract, not just raises?
I believe, yes, it may not say that specifically in the ordinance, but I think it's implied.
Implied?
Implied,
yeah.
Mr. President, if I could? We do have an ordinance that says myself and the deputies will receive the benefits except overtime. They do not get overtime, and neither do I. But the ordinance is that they will get the benefits of the union contract.
And that ordinance apply to other members of other departments too?
No. There are specific ordinances that apply to other department heads, and those would have to be specific changes to what currently exists.
So you're saying that we have an existing ordinance that dictates what goes on in the fire department, police department individually?
It's based on the union contract, yes, but take other departments. There are specific, for sick leave buyback or vacation buyback or vacation time. There's a specific ordinance for those department heads, but because they are tied to their union contract, then it's automatic.
Okay, thank you.
So are the deputy chiefs not members of the union?
That's correct. Myself and the deputies
Just like,
are not.
okay. Just like the... Councilor Boisvert.
Mr. President, how many civilian employees are at the station?
Currently, today, Council, we have 3. We'll have 2.5 starting Sunday. 1 half clerk will be eliminated. So we have a civilian mechanic, my confidential clerk, and then it's a full-time senior clerk position right now, but that's going to be reduced to a half-time July 1st.
And could those positions be handled with some of our firefighters?
The mechanic, no. The mechanic's been 32 years. He's an excellent employee.
Yeah.
Works very hard. My clerk is a 35-year employee of the city of Fitchburg. It's the only clerk I have. I don't know how other departments are set for clerks, but we've got a $6 million budget and 80-some-odd employees, and she's an excellent clerk and a confidential clerk that's done a great job.
I'm just thinking,
Yeah, I understand.
perhaps one of the firefighters...
Years ago, there was a firefighter, and I think they got rid of it for obvious reasons.
Didn't work out, huh?
Councilor Connery.
Chief, I was taking another look at this. The arson fire prevention director and the FEMA training director. In 2007, they went from round figures 4,000 to 74, 8,000 to 79. Are those 2 positions deputy chiefs?
That's correct.
Okay. But are they included in the 281,000?
No,
They're not.
no, those are the 4 shift commanders at the top, and...
Okay, that number should be 4 at the top, correct?
It is, Counselor, under
Oh,
208.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm looking back at 2006.
Right,
Forgive me, sir.
right. I tried to break it out, Counselor, so it'd be easy to see that the people in those lines 2, 3, and 4 are all shift people that all go to fires, that respond to fires, and get on the fire truck and go out the door in addition to their other duties.
Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, if you had your druthers and realistically thinking about the ambulance situation, do you have a timetable as to when that project could get off the ground, given that everything goes in order?
It's a good question, Counselor. It gets a little bit out of my hands after today because we have to talk to the union about that, which we did today. They have to go back. It's a drastic change in working conditions. And then we redraft our contract that we have currently, and that would be purchasing and solicitor. I would imagine, I would hope that we could get them to move along, and I would think that in a perfect world, 2 to 3 weeks turnover of getting it going.
Thank you.
Councilor Hay?
Could you give us an estimate of the cost associated with the 5 individuals who are facing layoff, what the city has expended to train them and get them ready?
The 5th firefighter is being laid off for the 2nd time in 4 years, so he's got 3 or 4 years on the job. All firefighters have gone through the firefighting academy. They're all EMT trained. Matter of fact, the 2 newest firefighters graduated Friday from the academy, last Friday. So we've got considerable time invested. They have been on since October. The next 2 senior guys, I believe, came on in January '03, and then the 5th one came on, I think, in '02, right in that time frame. So, they're fully trained firefighters with experience and have got their academy and their EMT training.
Was there a cost to the city for that training?
Well, we pay their paycheck. The EMT, I think most of these guys were EMTs when they came on the job because they were interested in the job and they went and got their EMT, which saves the city money. But then also we pay their salary while they're at the academy for 12 weeks. And we also train them as fire alarm operators because that's part of our duty. So it's the academy is free, but we do pay their salary.
While they're at the academy.
Yes.
So there is a cost associated with this.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
I guess I'll pipe in before we go on. You know that we've had conversation, and I've talked to several people in the room about my feelings when it comes to where the department's budget is at. I feel that this budget should be reduced by the amount of the pay raises that are in there for the contract of the year 2008. We're asking every other department in the city to do that and not take a pay raise in 2008. I think there's very few councilors that made that vote for the contract last year that would make that same vote this year. I don't know how much support I would get on doing that because I really don't think that we want to reduce the fire department anymore, and I really don't think that the union would make any concession to taking out their increase over this next year. But I just find it a very difficult thing with the situation that the city is in right now, that those negotiations aren't taking place between the union and the mayor for equity amongst the city employees, so that all city employees would be taking a 0 this year, if possible, for pay raises. And don't get me wrong, everybody is worth every penny that they get. Everybody is worth being employed by the city. And that's the main goal that I would see in that, is the employment factor of how many firefighters we would be gaining back from what we're laying off if that 2% was back in the budget.
Counselor, I appreciate that, and we did have a discussion on this. I understand where you're coming from, and I won't speak for the union, I only speak for myself. In 2003, we got whacked.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was a whole lot of fairness looked at. We were told at that time, when a number of councilors on this council worked to get the early retirement, that we couldn't fill those 6 jobs for 5 years so that we wouldn't lose money. We didn't fill those 6 jobs. In fact, we didn't fill 9 jobs. But yet other departments were put back to full strength and brought back up to where they were previous to 2003. So as a department head that runs a public safety department, my feeling is that we took a whack then, we're taking another whack now, and if this budget's cut more, we'll probably be losing another 2 or 3 people to layoffs.
Right, and that's the shame. I mean, I'd rather see monies go back into the budget to bring these people back on.
And I'm not so sure if there's money cut that wouldn't be putting firefighters back on, quite frank with you.
Councilor Connery?
Yes, Chief, Would you still take an engine and a ladder company out of service if the ambulance service is initiated and we save those jobs?
No, we would, yes, one engine's coming out no matter what. We're down to 3 engines no matter what. And the ambulance would be, if we could retain the laid-off people, we'd have enough to man 3 engines and the tower and an ambulance.
And the ladder company in
The ladder
Oak
company's
Hill is
gone.
out.
That's
Yeah.
gone. Unfortunately.
Thank you.
Counselor DeSalvatore?
We have a question to the mayor. We're wondering, this was posed by Councilor Hay, we're wondering about minimum staffing requirements, absolute minimum when it comes to a city of this size, having to do with our square miles, population, number of multifamilies, an aged housing environment. What is that? Have you come up with a figure? Do you have a figure?
Yeah, Counselor, we use the NFPA standard. Unfortunately, we haven't met the NFPA standard since 2003. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, and the standard is 1710. The standard was put in effect about 3 or 4 years ago, after about 15 years of studies of fire development, and it's things you just talked about, structures, population type, and how many people you need by task to pull up at a building fire and ventilate and stretch lines and establish a water supply and have a commander and all the things that you need to do. That standard says that a standard 1-story, single-family house with no exposures should have 17 people on scene to safely search that building, vent, extinguish the fire, make sure it doesn't extend elsewhere. Obviously, in this city, we do have fires in single-family houses, but not many of them. A lot of them are in the factory buildings, the 3-deckers, close together. So we've held that standard. We've tried to hold that standard. It also says you're supposed to have 4 people on a company. We don't. We're maintaining 3 people on our companies. So that's the standard. I think we knew that prior to the standard coming out back in the early 90s. We had a number of serious fires here where we saved a family of 4 when we had 18 people on duty one morning up on Huron Street, but yet we were down to 15 one morning and 2 people jumped out a 4th-floor window. So I think the standard's realistic. I think we know what we need, but we also understand the city's financial problem, and we're trying to get to a place where we will have 17 people on duty while trying to find some financing to do that.
And you say presently we're being dropped to 15?
14 as of Sunday morning.
14 as of Sunday morning. Having to do with the ambulance again, and I know it's not in the budget, but a lot of us have an interest in it. How many positions would be clearly, would we be reimbursed for? I don't mean touch and go, but clearly reimbursed for with the operation of the ambulance service.
We've got 2 proposals that we've looked at and we've discussed. We would hope that we would be reimbursed for all the laid-off people plus. There'll be 8 people riding that ambulance. We would like to get to that if we could. Not so sure. It depends on which proposal we go by.
What is the turnaround time before we start to realize the funding, the revenues of the ambulance service?
Again, Counsel, without divulging to the 2 companies that we've talked to, there could be immediate or there could be some time frame. And I can't really say tonight because of we haven't decided on that, of what.
I was given up to 8 months depending upon insurance payments and whatnot that would.
We're looking to establish some immediate revenue.
And would there be an opportunity for you to provide us with 2 cities of similar size, population and demographics, that we could verify the numbers? Because I know we've heard from Leominster. I've heard from you. The numbers are very impressive. I would rather see it as an additional revenue source. Of course, that's not necessarily the way it always works out. We'd love to see it at least break even, especially if it's going to cover an additional personnel.
Are you talking in relation to ambulance, Counsel?
Yes. But is there a couple of cities that you could point us to as far as population and demographics that would help us understand that those numbers are pretty solid?
I can tell you that in our proposals that we sent out to companies, we asked the ambulance companies for projected income.
Okay.
I can do that, but, I mean, the two companies that we're left dealing with here are the company that presently is in Fitchburg and the company that's in Leominster.
The reason I asked the question is because I don't know about everybody else here, but I get two stories out there, and I feel it's our responsibility to make sure that the numbers we're being given are absolute, not pie-in-the-sky hopefuls.
Counselor, I wouldn't come in here with a number that I felt wasn't going to make it by next June 30th.
I have no question about your integrity, Chief, but my integrity gets questioned if I don't ask the right questions.
I understand.
So I want to make sure I'm asking the right questions, and that's what I'm going to stick with. But I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Conry?
Yes, if I may make some comment on that. Councilor Hay and I were members of the last ambulance study committee, and Councilor DeSalvatore, our integrity would be questioned too. We did a very extensive study for 2 ambulances. I would be very remiss if I did not say we need to have a private company collecting our money, because I believe that's one of the reasons that we lost the ambulance before, because things slid, not on the part of the fire chief at that time, but on the part of the city and the collection agency. I guess history repeats itself with taxes in this city, too. The other comment I wanted to make was, I think we're putting ourselves in one hell of a position not having Ladder 2 in service. And I know that may be considered by somebody as a luxury, but if I were Councilor Bove, I'd be jumping up and down in Ward 2 because of the numerous multiple family dwellings up there. We're going to have to wait, and we have been waiting for a truck from Central to get up there, the ladder. I thought we'd learn our lesson when somebody tossed a baby out of a window, and only for the grace of God, Chief Roy, who was not chief then, caught the baby. A lot of people forget that. So, you know, we've got to do everything to protect our citizens in this city. And we're going to be in dire straits because of this budget. And I just hope and pray that we don't have a tragedy. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor,
just
yes.
one thing on that. I agree with you, Counsel, but, and keep in mind that starting Sunday, we'll be short one more company. An engine company will be out, and when the truck's out on a call, that station's gonna be empty at times. So we're gonna do like we always do, and these guys in this room always do, our best, but it's getting extremely difficult for a city this size to be able to provide the protection for the citizens and the safety of the firefighters.
Councilor Hay? Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Conry used the word a luxury. Some people might consider to have all of the equipment and all of the trucks online that the chief wishes he had. Well, we might consider it a luxury until it's your building, until it's your family. Then it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. In relationship to Councilor DeSalvatore's ambulance questions, I'm in agreement with Councilor Conry. There was a report, and I think those numbers are solid, were researched, and would hold up. But Chief, in getting back to the ambulance, if I could ask, there is established already an enterprise fund for ambulance service. Is it possible for a period of time for revenue that would be generated from an ambulance service to go into the general fund to pay those salaries of those folks who are on that, and at some time then start diverting it into the enterprise fund?
I asked the question about the enterprise fund to the mayor. He indicated that his direction to me was to try and get a one-year contract that we could work with, and we actually put language in with Deputy Spano that would establish a committee that included a city councilor to meet and find a direction and find where we should go with this. In the meantime, we would be getting revenue projections and actual call runs to us, so we know where those ambulances are going and how much revenue is being generated for 1 year, and we could establish something in that regard.
Thank you.
Councilor Boisvert?
I would be remiss if I didn't really put in my request to the fire chief, as since the fire chief is the director, to maintain our Oak Hill Fire Station fully staffed. This is one of the oldest sections of the city, and we are inundated with old multifamily dwellings that are very close together. Ward 4 also has that problem, but Ward 2 is kind of away from the center of the city, and we need all the fire protection we can because of the age of the buildings, because of the population. We cannot leave these people out in the lurch, in hopes that a fire truck from the main station gets there in time. We need our protection, and I'm appealing to you not to do it. I know you have a manpower problem, but there's no reason why an entire section of a town be put in that jeopardy. Thank you.
Mr. President, Councilor, I agree. We between now and Sunday, we have to decide what company is going out of service. It will not be Engine 2 in Cleghorn. Ladder 2 was shut down up there. We're down to 3 people up there. We know what the fire load is up there. We know what the population is. It'll either be a headquarters company or it'll be Summer Street Station closing. And we haven't made that determination yet.
Thank you.
And I can tell you, though, again, that a lot of times that one of the 4th engine would go cover Oak Hill when that truck was tied up. That may not happen on occasion now. And we had that case just a few months back last fall, right up the street. We had the building fire right up the street, and Engine 2 was out on another call. And when we pulled up, the people were screaming, "Where you been?" And I think we were only 4 minutes or 6 minutes out. But, and I understand where you're coming from.
I mean, we have a picture right there on the wall that shows the how the multifamily dwellings are all stacked on top of one another. If one of those buildings gets going good, they're all going.
And they do. We understand, Councilor.
And, the response time is so critical in an area like that. Thank you, Chief.
Councilor Caddy?
We're going to have to vote on this budget within the next few days. When will you get back to us? When will you make agreements with the union? When will you be able to get back to us so we can get this settled?
I won't speak for the union leadership, but they know how this is going, and I believe that they will move as quickly as possible. And then I think what we would need to get the contract may take a little bit longer, because I think the city solicitor is leaving town. Hopefully, the assistant could work with us. It's not a huge change. We have a contract, and it's just the changing of us running one of the vehicles. So we understand the time frame. We understand that, we start paying unemployment benefits Sunday for people, and we've been moving as quickly as we can, Council, but we're not just going to, as I said to Council DeSalvatore, we're not just going to go do something just for the sake of doing it. We need a plan. This is public safety. We need to think and cover all the options, which we've been trying to do over the last couple of weeks.
Do you think you can do that in the next few days?
Honestly, Council, I can't answer that because it's out of my hands.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Boisvert?
Yes, thank you. In all fairness to all other department heads, we have been making cuts to each and every department head. Their increase in pay through their matrix system, and I'm going to make a motion that the fire chief's salary be brought back to the 207 level, plus increase, whatever.
Mr. President, can I just make one comment that I'm not part of the matrix and I've never received any matrix raises. So my raises go with what the firefighters get.
That would be the current rate. It would be reduced to $90,463.
You should touch it.
Is there a second to the motion? Okay. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to check, Chief, the bottom line as far as number of employees, you canceled that and you initialed it.
Yes, I did.
Was 91. Now, if I'm correct, 81 and a half?
81.5.
81 and a half.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
Hey, curiosity, Chief. Clothing and cleaning.
Yep.
$212,000, 424. Is that clothing, new clothing, and cleaning all put together? Is that
Yes.
cleaning up clothing?
That's clothing, cleaning, turnout gear, everything the firefighters buy. Hoods, gloves, work boots, dress uniforms, everything that's required. It's in our contract, what they're required to have. We do inspections every year, check their equipment. If they don't have the right equipment or it's worn out, they're to replace it. And that's also their cleaning of their gear, which gets some foreign objects on it quite a bit.
Understood. Without that split, it's very difficult to ask another question, but having to do with the cleaning, how much of that is cleaning?
All the clothes they wore during the day is cleaned, Counselor, every day. Their uniforms, their...
I'm saying of the requested amount.
I don't know, Counselor. It's a contracted item through the union that it's clothing and cleaning. It was increased a few years back for cleaning to take into consideration cleaning because we were getting a lot of stuff on the guys' gear and their regular clothing, even going out on medical calls. So there's not a split. It's a standard rate. It's just called clothing and cleaning.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment on the ambulance service. I had a medical call at my restaurant last night. A engine company from Leominster responded and 2 MedStar ambulances. So I ended up having 7 people in my restaurant for one gentleman that was dizzy or something like that. But
That's their procedure, Counsel.
Yeah,
The
it
maximum
was-
we have is 5.
yeah. No, it wasn't even the Leominster ambulance that responded. It
Yeah,
was
they were probably-
MedStar. Yep. So there's more money out there to be had. Moving on to page 21, expenses. Amount requested, $91,000. Amount allowed by the mayor, $88,000.
Mr. President, those are the actual figures that I asked for in my column. I know that's come up in the
91,000.
past. Those are in all of my pages.
Counselor Donnelly.
Chief, on the line, fire alarm maintenance equipment, is there an advantage to having fire alarms through the fire department versus private? And does it pay?
Yeah, we have about 290 boxes, Counselor, and we bring in, it's $100 for a license, times the 290, so whatever that comes out to be. That's the income. However, that fire alarm maintenance budget is a lot of different things, and it goes from our radio repair, our wireless communication, our radios, our boxes. Very little of it is spent. Matter of fact, the fire alarm system itself is probably self-sufficient just because we charge $100. We are looking at that rate. We think that's a low rate that we're charging to the companies that have that. We're only bringing about $29,000 on that. We think we can do better, but that's going to require, I believe, an ordinance change. It's through Anna's office, but we are looking at that. But that line item is really a bunch of other things that we do as far as our phone bills, pagers, all kinds of other issues that come out of that line item. It's kind of, you can see we don't have a huge expense budget. We've got 1 copy machine in the whole department. We've got 1 laser printer. Everybody prints to 1. I think in that regard, we're pretty frugal of what we do. We've been cut quite a bit. So everybody runs to the 1 printer that we lease. And
Thank you.
Counselor Conry.
question, Chief. What's the condition of your radios in your system?
We've submitted, Counselor, for the last 4 years to the Federal Fire Act to upgrade our radio equipment. We were able to get some funding out of the Homeland Security money for the city. I'm hoping to get another tower replaced up on High Rock Road this year. The radio system is not in good condition. We need to go to a UHF band, a higher band, so not only we have better communications in the concrete buildings, talking to each other, talking back to fire alarms. Certain areas of the city have dead spots. We've got some issues. We can't talk to Fitchburg Police on the same band. We need a separate radio. We can't talk to Leominster Fire on the same radio because of the band differences. We've again applied this year to the fire grant. It's about a $650,000 system that we need here. And if we got that grant, they pay for 80%. The federal government pays 80%. So we've banged on some doors at Senator Kerry's office and Senator Kennedy's and Representative Olva. We wrote some nasty letters when we've been refused for the last 3 years, and we will keep on that. But obviously with the condition of the city, that's a big chunk of money, and we do the best we can now, but we very badly need new radio system in the city with a complete repeater system so that everybody hears all the messages from everybody involved.
Just a comment. When I hear somebody from Malden talking from inside a building, and I can't hear somebody on Rollstone Street talking over the radio, I knew what the answer was going to
Thunderstorms
be.
are coming, Council. We can hear Manhattan. They come over our radio system, so.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 22. Building maintenance. Amount requested, $164,000. Amount allowed, $153,000. Councilor DeSalvatore.
Chief, you've given me a wonderful tour of the North Street Station and a few others, and I know you run a tight ship, and you've recently had Unitel through and doing an evaluation and to some motion detector switches, brought everything up to a point where you've got the money savings is built into the project now. And I see that there's an increased jump. We went from 48,000 to 50,000 from '06 to '07, and now we're going up an additional $10,000. Is there a projected expectation? I mean, I realize that our fuel costs are sort of wavering right now, but are you expecting something?
No, that's just, I estimated when I wrote the budget in January, I took what I was actually spending and projected it out, and you'll see I'll be back in here tomorrow night for some more money to finish paying those bills on the heat. It's strictly fuel cost, Counselor. The supply costs have come in, and as I told the council in April, those bills came in very late from our supplier. I don't know why that happened. They didn't come until late, but that's just a realistic figure of what it's costing. And you're right, we completed our complete analysis that was paid for by Unitil, and they paid 80% of upgrading all our lights in all 3 buildings, and that project is complete.
So part of this is catch-up?
On the electric side, I hope so. On the fuel side, it's just increased costs.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to page 23, fire for equipment and repair. Amount requested, $111,000. Amount allowed, $110,000. Let's drive some hard bargains with that mayor. You don't get reduced all that much.
The increase there is the gas and oil. I think it's a pretty clean budget.
Yeah.
It's not like we've got a lot of money left over at the end of the year. We don't.
That's a good thing. Page 24, capital expenditures, amount requested, $1,290,700. Amount allowed, 0. Councilor Hay.
Just an annual observation, as Councilor DiMartino does for a few of these. You know, if we don't do capital expenditures, it costs us in the long run. You know, we need to either start doing some of these things or at least put money into the stabilization account so we have something available when we need something. Going out and borrowing money to purchase these things is not in the best interest of the city. Thank you.
President, just on that, as you councils know, many of you were there for Memorial Sunday, we've done pretty well with equipment, but a lot of it came from grants. It came from grants that either I got or Mike got through different organizations and Homeland Security and donations from the college and the Aguda Sakim and all the things that we've done to pick up new vehicles, but the well's going dry. The Homeland Security money's drying up. It's not going to be there. And I agree with Councilor Hay. We were trying to keep up to date. You know, we've still got a couple trucks that, we've still got a ladder truck that's 30 years old, another one's 27 years old. We've still got a pumper that's 24 years old. It's still running, so we need to kind of keep up. We did, Councilor, apply. This year we were allowed under the Fire Act to apply for 2 categories. So we applied for the radio system and for a pumper. And as you remember, we got engine 2 with a Fire Act grant in 2004, I believe. And they paid $270,000, the city paid $30,000. So we did pursue another truck through the grants.
Councilor DeSalvatore?
I have to ask back on the ambulance idea again. You were talking about an enterprise account. Would that be a closed system, only taking care of the ambulance, the crew, the equipment? Or would some of those monies be allowed to be used in the purchase of other equipment?
I don't know, maybe Dick could answer that better. The ambulance enterprise was established in 1991 by the city council, and my understanding is that once you do it, that money's used for the ambulance expenditures.
Yeah, once it's established, we accept the law.
We did accept.
You would have to find a way to associate cost for that ambulance service. If that ambulance service cannot fund the cost on its own, then it would hit the general fund. But I don't think, charging another vehicle, a pumper, for the ambulance enterprise, that probably wouldn't fly, because it isn't, the association isn't there unless maybe they can demonstrate they do calls with it. We'd have to present that, I guess, to the state.
Councilor Hay.
Just as a follow-up to the question of Mr. Saracen regarding that, though, would it be allowable for some of the expenditures for the building, the heat, the electricity, and those types of things to be prorated out of the enterprise fund for ambulance service there?
As well as fringe benefits.
Right, so if you go that way with it, then you're ended up taking the money that you save there, you can put into the trucks that we'd like to get.
Works. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
Any other business this evening?
We will adjourn.
Second.
Councilor Cruz?
When will the council be revisiting?
Could you speak up, Jay?
Scheduled for tomorrow, or?
We can't hear, I can't.
When is the council as a whole, if we want to revisit something? For this tomorrow evening?
Tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow evening. That's okay.
Just be prepared. I'm going to bring back up the issue with the police department and the civilian dispatches. If some of you have the information, could you review it? But I'm going to be bringing it back up tomorrow night.
There's a couple other matters that we got from the city clerk this evening, just to clarify some of the votes that we took the other evening. where it was thought that those votes had passed. I think she passed that out to everybody.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I just gave it to you.
All right, now what do I do with it?
Here's mine.
On our meeting on June 18th, we had a motion to cut the law department from $85,000 to $75,000. The motion was voted 5 in favor, 4 opposed. Because there wasn't 6 votes, even though there was only 9 counselors there, that motion didn't carry. And also to reduce the city council travel and meetings expense line to 0. That was also voted on by the council and passed, and not passed because it was a 5-4 vote. So those 2 items are not passed by our current votes. So if we want to revisit those, we want to revisit those tomorrow. Yeah, I think everybody needs to be prepared. I think that we really need some answers in the, I know that the mayor has told the press that he's reinstated the veterans, but I don't believe that there's anything that's come to this council that has said that the veterans position has been reinstated. We have a planning, we have the downtown coordinator's position that we were to ask Mr. Streb about. Mr. Streb brought it to my attention that we didn't talk about that during his budget. He really wants to see that discussion take place because he really would like to see that stay at IDC because that is a component of that business. But he doesn't, he wants that discussion to continue because there is CDBG funding that we're funding that person for, but it's not totally funded, and we missed that conversation in the last budget. The dog officer, I still have a strong feeling that that's going to be something that's going to be dropped, and I think it's going to come into our lap in the end. So I think we need some answers before we even get to tomorrow night from the mayor's office. If we could send him an emergency letter asking about the veterans position, asking about the dog officers, the animal control officers position, and the plans for, I guess that the other one is ours. The downtown coordinator is not a question for him. Any other business? Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?